I walked to this spot 13 days ago here in Townsend, Montana.
This is Will Buchanan reporting for the Walk for Liberty.
It's July 23rd, 2008, day 89. I'm continuing my coast-to-coast walk across America to New Hampshire after an almost 2-week detour to go to Brooks' family reunion back in Idaho. Although, because I think we were about 3 weeks behind in processing and uploading videos before we left, and because John was diligently editing and posting about 2 videos a day while we were gone, not only will there be virtually no gap in videos being uploaded, but also, due to John's hard work, we'll pretty much be caught up to real time. Which is something that hasn't been true since nearly the beginning of the Walk for Liberty. And which is something I've been eagerly anticipating for quite some time. But due to my time crunch, was something I wasn't able to accomplish when I was editing the videos, as I kept gradually falling further and further behind. So thanks, John, for getting us caught up while Brooke and I were at the reunion. Actually, if you had watched my Day 88 video, you know that I had been intending to still produce videos while we were there. As it turned out, though, I had such a good time that I didn't end up getting any videos made. I guess sometimes it's hard to plan for and anticipate future events correctly. Another thing is that, owing to the fact that we had to drive an hour each way to get internet connectivity, that I wasn't able to respond to my email and comments in as timely a manner as I would have liked. One thing I was able to do while there was I was finally able to get a pair of size 14 shoes, thanks to the REI store in Boise. Before leaving for the reunion, I had gotten a couple different blisters between my toes in short succession. My guess is that was due to my toes being crowded too closely together, so hopefully the expanded toe box on my size 14 should help that. Driving yesterday on the way back from the reunion, Brooke and I encountered an interesting situation. There were a couple freak downpours, which, due to the normally dry Idaho climate, caused some flash flooding. In some places, mud had washed down from ravines, completely covering the road. In the first major place like this we encountered, there was a long line of cars queued up behind it, waiting. I walked ahead to scout out the situation. And although the mud was spongy, it looked passable. It strikes me, though, that the people waiting in line were either waiting for the government to come to their aid, or were falling victim to waiting in line syndrome, where they were just waiting in line because that's what everybody else was doing, and they didn't necessarily realize what they were waiting for. That happened once to a friend of mine after a hurricane in Florida. There had been a long line of cars waiting on the road, and apparently the assumption was that they either couldn't or weren't allowed to go further. But it turned out, though, that the only reason traffic was backed up was because the people in front were waiting to get into a gas station at the intersection. So many people that didn't even want gas were stuck waiting there because they didn't question the situation. My friend was smart, though, and discovered that all he had to do was drive on past the line through the intersection and didn't even have to wait in it. But back to the situation from yesterday, one thing that did impress me was that even though there weren't any so-called government authorities there to control the situation, that there was no chaos or mass pandemonium. The individuals in front who understood what was going on were each making their own choices about whether they thought their vehicle could go through safely. There was even a couple of local guys standing next to it, helping people to make decisions about whether they should go through or not. And as it turned out, most vehicles were able to go through just fine, especially our Subaru, which, with its four-wheel drive, didn't have any problems at all. We thought we had passed the worst of it, but then we came across another long line of cars. Again, I scouted ahead to check out the situation, but this time the mudslide was a lot worse.
At one point, a three-legged dog trudged through it, so I was able to estimate that it was at least a foot deep.
Before I had gotten there, a guy in a Hyundai Mini SUV style vehicle had already tried unsuccessfully a couple times to drive through it.
I think a high-clearance pickup truck with four-wheel drive probably would have had a good shot at getting through it, though.
But nobody else ended up trying to go across until a couple bulldozers came and cleared it all out. And for all I know, they weren't even necessarily called by the government. They could have just been volunteers coming to lend a hand with the situation. Brooke and I ended up having to wait there about an hour and a half until it was cleared out. And I don't even know how long the earliest people who got there had to wait.
But then again, the government has no real incentive to get situations like that resolved quickly. They still get your gas taxes whether or not they perform efficiently.
If that had been a privately owned, for-profit road, the owner would have every incentive to get it cleared up as quickly as possible, because he wouldn't want to risk losing any customers due to performing poorly. As one example, he might install sensors in key areas to detect instantly when a situation like that happens so he can correct it. Or it might even be worth his while to install a system to redirect the mud so the problem is not even as likely to happen in the first place. The government has no such incentives to keep you happy though, since currently if you want to travel any distance by car, you have no choice but to use their roads. However, a private company only stays in business as long as its customers are satisfied, so a private road owner would have every incentive to keep his roads operational as much as possible. On my first day back, I walked a bit over 11 miles. And here are my GPS coordinates. This is Will Buchanan for blog.walkforliberty.com, signing off.